Live on DSTV channel 421 and GoTV channel 125. All social media platforms and around the world on myjoyonline.com. This is Joy News Prime with me, Carlos Kaloni. Our headlines this hour. Tonight, uncertainty hit Ghana's power sector as 7 generating plants shut down due to challenges from the West African gas pipeline, resulting in a reduction of nearly 40% in its dependable capacity. And President-elect John Dramani Mahama has assured Ghanaians that his incoming administration will not misuse the overwhelming majority secured by the NDC in the just-ended elections.
We're not going to misuse the majority we have in Parliament. Even though we have a huge majority, more than 2/3, we're not going to misuse it.
Also, National Road Safety Authority, the NRSA, launches a relentless nationwide crackdown on reckless drivers to curb the surge in road crashes ahead of the festive season. We have more, plus tell you internal measures the GPRT itself is putting in place to address the challenge. Thank you for choosing us. Now tonight, Ghanaians have to brace for heightened Dumsor as 7 generating plants shut down due to challenges from the West African gas pipeline company, WAPCO. Current power data available to Joy News shows the country is producing nearly 40% below its dependable capacity, with the 7 plants adding zero power to the grid. This is coming about as a result of WAPCO reporting of an unusual debris at one of their compressor stations, triggering some operational upset at their thermal regulatory and metering station, resulting in the shutdown. Let's share the details with you. There you have on your screen the WAPCO update. The West African Gas Pipeline Company Limited, WAPCO, announces that the cleaning and inspection of the 56 km by 30 onshore pipeline section between Itoki and Badagry, part of the West African gas pipeline in Nigeria, is progressing steadily. Now, during the cleaning exercise, a larger than expected volume of liquids and debris was received at the Lagos Beach compressor station. This has triggered some operational upset at our thermal regulatory and metering station, requiring a temporary shutdown for safety reasons and investigation. It goes on to say WAPCO expresses its gratitude to its key stakeholders for their patience during this process and apologizes for any inconvenience caused. Now, indeed, this shutdown has caused both ECG and GRIDCo to warn Ghanaians of the impending load shedding as a result of this situation. Now, they've actually issued a statement there, and the statement reads that the Ghana Grid Company and the Electricity Company of Ghana, ECG, wish to inform the general public that due to a temporary shutdown of WAPCO's thermal regulatory and metering station, some thermal power plants in Tema have had to be shut down. And the shutdown has caused a shortfall in power supply, requiring some limited load management in some parts of the country. Now, according to a statement issued by WAPCO, the temporary shutdown of its thermal regulatory and metering station was necessitated by some operational upset when some larger than expected liquid and debris were received at its Lagos Beach compressor station. And GRIDCo and ECG are optimistic that WAPCO will soon resolve the challenge and restore gas supply. Once gas supply resumes, power supply will be restored to all affected customers. And GRIDCo and ECG wish to apologize to all affected customers for the inconvenience caused. So what is the latest on the current power situation of the country? Here is Isaac Ofieje of our research desk with a breakdown of what has been happening in the power sector.
Currently, if we look at the country's peak demand, it's around 3,788 megawatts. And if you look at the grid report we have so far, we are doing 2,659, which means we are 30% below the peak demand level. If you compare it to the dependable capacity, we are 44% below that. And in fact, if you look at the amount of energy that ECG and GRIDCo had to share at the moment, it's 1,129 megawatts of power. Let's also look at some power plants that are currently down. If you look at the TT1PP, is down, it's producing at 0%, zero at the moment. Senate Power is 0. Siemens is also 0. If you look at TE66, the T31 is also 0. And then Amandi is 0. And then the last one is the Bridge Power, which is also 0. So 7 power plants are currently not producing. If you care to know which installation is keeping the country at the moment, then there's Akosombo, which is producing 780 megawatts. And then also we have the Car Power, which is also producing 433. So this is the situation at the moment, producing 30% below our peak demand.
I bet you've been trying to find out how long this will linger and when the situation will be resolved.
Absolutely.
Did you find anything? Did you find anything?
Well, it will be difficult because this is, fluctuating. We may have to study the data in a week's time to know the actual study.
Well, it's a good time to bring in Nana Amosi the seventh. He's the Executive Director of Institute of Energy Studies here in Accra. Thank you so much for your time. How can we avoid this looming Dumsor that the country is currently experiencing?
Well, Carlos, good evening to you and to your viewers. But a point of correction is the Institute for Energy Security, please.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so you're asking how serious is the looming crisis?
Yes, and how can we avoid that now?
We've got an indication from the West Africa Gas Pipeline through the VRA that they will be completing the exercise somewhere around 7 p.m. thereabouts. So gas flow may touch down to the eastern corridor around 7 today. We are yet to receive that indication. But if the statement is anything to go by, then of course there won't be the need for panic here, because presently we are also supported largely by the supply of liquid fuel to send power to Atogli, to the Pontema power station. The plants are running, although Atogli is not running full capacity. We've also had an indication that Akosombo is running somewhere around 900 megawatts. And so we've shored up our capacity through liquid fuels and enhancement in Akosombo and Bui Dam. If the gas supply begins any minute from now, then of course we have adequate fuel supply to the plant. And so there will be the need for any panic.
All right, so you think there's no need for a timetable as some are already calling for?
Yes, if we don't get any good indication as suggested by WAPCO through VRA, then of course we must have the timetable. But if the gas begins to flow this night, there won't be the need for a timetable because we'll have enough of fuel to run the entire system.
All right. Thank you so much, sir, for speaking to us here on Joy News Prime. Now, this evening, the National Road Safety Authority is launching a relentless nationwide crackdown on reckless drivers to curb the surge in road crashes ahead of the festive season. The NRSA's Acting Director General, David Safo Adonten, announced this in an interview with Joy News following 2 road crashes that claimed 5 lives in the Central and OT regions. We'll hear from him shortly. But first, let's bring you an account of the crash that left 3 dead and 20 critically injured after 2 fully loaded passenger buses collided at Gomwa Otreko. The deceased included 2 men and 1 woman, while the 20 injured persons are currently battling for their lives at the Winneba Trauma and Specialist Hospital. Here's an eyewitness account of the incident.
We saw the Sprinter bus collide with the Hyundai Grace. From where I sat, I saw that the driver of the Hyundai tried to save everyone in his car by swerving, but to no avail. The Sprinter was coming at a top speed and hit the other car. 3 people died instantly. The rest are badly injured. This is all the fault of the Sprinter driver.
Well, in the Oti region, angry residents of KJB have also set ablaze an immigration service vehicle which crashed 2 teenagers to death yesterday. Correspondent Peter Seno report.
The accident, which occurred at about 6:30 p.m. Wednesday evening, 11th December 2024, killed 2 teenagers at Okanta, a suburb of KJB, who were returning home to Menusu, also a suburb of KJB, after work. The male rider in his teen was a motor mechanic apprentice, and the lady, also a teenager, a makeup artist apprentice, both at KJB. The vehicle, with registration number 441, was said to be driven by the Menusu sector commander himself when the accident occurred. The vehicle was said to be overtaking another vehicle when it collided with the 2, killing them on the spot. Angry youth who thronged the scene were said to be infuriated by comments from officers deployed to protect the vehicle and touched it into flames. Agbe Makafui was one of the first persons to have arrived at the scene of the accident. He narrates what is I was coming from Menusu towards KJB. From the look of the vehicle, it was moving towards KJB, while those riding on the motorbike were riding towards Menusu. It was clear from what I saw that the vehicle was overtaken. When I arrived at the scene, I realized the young man was dying. We later found the lady far away in the bush. I was far from the scene when I realized the vehicle was touched, but I cannot tell those who did it. I know the 2 who died. The rider was a motor mechanic apprentice, while the lady was a makeup artist apprentice, both at KJB. Peter Sen for Joy News.
Now, to reduce road crashes this year, the Acting Director General of the National Road Safety Authority, Engineer David Safo Adonten, has announced a collaboration with the Ghana Police Service to deal ruthlessly with recalcitrant drivers who fail to adhere to road traffic regulations.
The National Road Safety Authority and the police, we announced the strategy to deal with situations during the elections and beyond. So we combined elections and Christmas. We launched our program. And what we told the whole Ghana was that we are combining education and enforcement. We will be on the roads. We will be identifying drivers in particular who would be behaving, for that matter, not complying with the rules and regulations of the road. We will apprehend them, arrest, and prosecute them.
Okay.
I think that is the ruthless strategy we are deploying, because we have done all the education that we need to do. I think all those who are now creating problems for us are the ones we call recalcitrant. They do not want to obey the rules and the regulations. Just imagine how can, in this time that we have engaged drivers severally, do a wrongful overtaking. Some also speeding beyond. These are people who need not be pampered at all.
Well, it's a good time to bring in the Public Relations Officer for the Ghana Private Road Transport Union, Abbas Imoro. Grateful for your time, sir. The National Road Safety Authority is blaming the recent road crashes we've been seeing on recalcitrant drivers who refuse to adhere to traffic regulations. How do you respond to this? Hello, Abbas Imoro. Kindly unmute so we can hear you, sir. Well, we're having some challenge hearing Abbas Imoro, who is the PRO of the GPRTU, to respond to some of these issues being raised by the National Road Safety Authority. If you can hear me, Abbas. Right. So we're still having some challenge there. Mr. Abbas, if you can unmute your device so we can hear exactly what you're saying. Right, so we'll bring that interview to you later. But you're still watching Joy News Prime with me, Carlos Caloni. We'll take a short break. We'll return with more. Please stay. Welcome back, and thank you so much for staying with us. Let's go back to our earlier interview. Abbas Imoro, if you can hear me. I was asking you, actually, the National Road Safety Authority has been blaming some recalcitrant drivers for the increasing accident we're seeing on our roads, and I wanted to get your reaction to that. Yeah, Abbas Imoro, so if you can hear me, I was actually asking you what's your reaction to the National Road Safety Authority's claim that your members are the cause of the accident we are seeing on our roads.
Are you hearing me now?
I can hear you loud and clear now, sir.
Hello?
I can hear you.
You can hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The problem is, what is accident? Unexpected, which has happened. And it is true, most of accidents comes through recalcitrant drivers. We've been also telling them that there are some drivers who has never traveled, for instance, from Accra to Nkoko before. But during festive time, because there are a lot of passengers, they are forced to go that distance. And at times, if you're on the highway and you are not very careful, some vehicles which pass by, especially the high occupancy buses, if you are not careful, you will panic. So we've been telling them, you are now in authority, kindly try to make sure we all go by the road signs erected by the roadsides. Make sure you put in a mechanism to check overspeeding. Because at a given time, we've been allowed to drive within a specific speed limit. But here we are. Some are having flashy cars. Some are even having the commercial vehicles, which they go beyond the required speed. And we must be honest to ourselves. If you drive within the required speed limit, you are always driving very safe.
All right, so you believe that the accident we are seeing on our roads cannot be limited to commercial drivers alone?
Well, most are private cars, but if we are involved with one commercial vehicle, we are deeply, to say very sorry, a commercial, because every commercial driver is supposed to be a professional driver who should avoid some avoidable issues on the road.
All right.
So you being the commercial driver, we expect you to be more experienced than most of the private drivers.
Okay, briefly, what interventions are you putting in place to train your drivers ahead of the festive season? Briefly.
We have trained them. We continue training them. They should also put the mechanism to limit some of these things on the road. We've been telling them each time we meet, we've been telling them that, please, you just can't stay in Accra and monitor something.
All right.
Around Nkoko or Chibi area.
Okay.
You should put in a mechanism which will also help to limit the speed in particular.
Grateful for your time, Abbas Imoro, the PRO of the GPRTU. Moving on, but for the swift intervention of a Ghanaian female medical doctor who was on board a KLM Accra-bound flight from Amsterdam, the worst could have happened to a passenger who suddenly developed an emergency and needed medical attention on the 11th of December 2024. Her swift response, professionalism and calmness in the face of the emergency allayed the fears of many passengers on the flight who panicked after the emergency announcement or call for a doctor was made on the flight. She appeared to be in good control of the situation and managed the situation until the plane landed safely here in Accra. I'm talking about Dr. Joyce Emefa Adokla with Local Health Medical Center here in Accra, East Legon. She joins us live on Zoom now. Grateful for your time, madam. I know you are still jet lagged, so I appreciate your time with us here. Tell us how all this happened on the flight.
All right. Thank you so much for having me join you. I'm very humbled. So about 4 hours into our flight from Amsterdam, there was an emergency call by one of the flight attendants that if there was any medical doctor on board, there was an emergency, and so they needed urgent attention. So, I mean, intuitively, I just quickly got off because I immediately looked into my husband's eyes, who was seated to my left, but he was by the window. He's also a medical doctor, but he's an ONG specialist.
Okay.
So he just signaled me that he would handle the boy. We were in the company of our son, a toddler. So he handled the boy while I quickly grabbed my bag from the overhead compartment. I usually like to carry basic medical equipment with me when I'm traveling. So my stethoscope, diagnostic set is usually my bag. So I just grabbed my bag and quickly went to the site. And for the purpose of confidentiality, I wouldn't like to mention the patient's name.
Great.
So I just quickly assessed the situation, checked the patient's vitals. And I must commend KLM. They had an emergency medical box that contained emergency drugs, syringes, injections, and then all that. So I must say that was very helpful. So I went through that and then just selected what I needed, and then quickly I stabilized the patient. And because there was a bit of agitation on the flight, these things do happen. And sometimes if you're not lucky, the patient dies even in the air before you land. So I'm very humbled that I was able to bring the situation under control. We quickly moved the patient to the business class area and then monitored the situation till who is very appreciative of the contribution I made towards his getting well before we go down. So
Great.
I'm very humbled, right?
Great work there. But how difficult was it handling a situation like that mid-air as compared to doing so while on the ground?
Right. Of course, mid-air, you wouldn't have all you need to be able to handle a situation. So there it is your expertise, it's your skill against the limited resources that you have, and then you just work with the limited resources that you have, because of course it wouldn't be like a hospital when you're on the ground. So you just work with the limited resources that you have and stabilize the patient till you get down. So the only challenge was why I remained calm was if I had agitated, I wouldn't have been able to think through. Because if you agitate and then you're just wondering, what if the patient dies? What if the patient dies? So I just needed to keep a calm head, a cool head, and then just go through the protocol like you do for any emergency situation. And by God's grace, the patient is very fine.
We thank God for that. But what was actually wrong with the patient, briefly?
So it was a diabetic emergency.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Like I said, for the purpose of confidentiality, I wouldn't want to go much into detail, but it was a diabetic emergency.
Thank you. We appreciate your service to mankind and keep doing good. Thank you so much. Right, away from that story, President-elect John Dramani Mahama has assured Ghanaians that his incoming administration will not misuse the overwhelming majority secured by the National Democratic Congress in the just-ended elections. Speaking during a courtesy call by the National Chief Imam, he promised to consult the new patriotic party at every step, stating that he is committed to democratic governance. He dismissed the Supreme Leader tag attributed to him after the massive victory by the NDC. We'll bring you that far in a subsequent bulletin. Moving on, in a surprising turn of events, the presidential and parliamentary elections proceeded peacefully in the Boku Central constituency of the Upper East region, contrary to many expectations that there could be violence due to the long-standing chieftaincy conflicts there. This calm came as a relief to residents, election observers, and Ghanaians as a whole. Upper East Regional Correspondent Albert Sari has more in the following report.
As a journalist covering the 2024 election in the Boko Central constituency, I faced firsthand the tension that still lingers there. On the eve of the election, in the company of a fellow journalist, I joined local voters in seeking police escort to ensure safe passage into the volatile area which has been engulfed in an inter-ethnic chieftaincy conflict for decades now. At the regional police headquarters in Bolgatanga, I found many voters stranded, unable to find buses willing to make the journey due to safety concerns and the rigorous screening processes the security agencies had to take them through.
We took it upon ourselves to do this organization. And now because of the security situation, they need to search your bags and then search your wares before you can now load them in the truck. So Bolga has become the conversion point for all natives of Boku Township who are going to Boku, for everything to be searched before you can board. And now due to that security situation too, most of the buses or the market trucks are not willing to go. So everything is now being dumped here.
We have been stranded here for days, in struggling to get transportation to go home and vote. A lot of people have been sleeping here. Myself, I've been here for about 24 hours now, but there are people who have been here for days, just looking for means of transportation. It is very difficult, and that thing is very painful, as if we are not human beings.
Some of the voters managed to arrange their transportation and journey in groups to Boko, escorted by police patrols. But hundreds more were anxiously waiting and getting apprehensive. A team of police officers deployed to Boko were about to leave. So the Regional Police Special Operations Office directed that we move with them. 3 police officers joined us in my car while the rest of their team drove behind us. We made our way to Boko, the air tense with some fear and anxiety, but the sight of uniformed officers provided some reassurance. We arrived in Boko less than 1 hour before the curfew time of 6 p.m. and proceeded to the police station where the officers were to report to duty. Curfew time was fast approaching, but the streets were still busy with the movement of people. We took the chance to gauge the mood ahead of the elections the next day by speaking to a few youths in the town.
We want a peaceful election. The fact that Boku is not stable, there is tension in town, and then this evening we saw a lot of military men inside. They came to town, so I'm sure with that the town will be stable for us to vote.
Though there is a critic threat, so due to one or two reasons, but upon all that, people will definitely come out their numbers to vote. Because looking at 3 days today, the situation is now a bit calm.
Before 8 a.m., we sighted more voters arriving from Bolgatanga in buses, escorted by the military. The transportation of election materials to some polling stations here in the Boko constituency had delayed, mainly due to the security protocols involved. Therefore, voting started a bit late at some of the polling stations. At the Methodist Primary School polling station, we met voters in a queue, but no Electoral Commission officials were present at almost 9 a.m. We were told that the EC officials had set up for voting to begin, but were instructed by an unknown person to pack up and go to the Boko prisons nearby for qualified prisoners to cast their votes first. This angered the waiting voters at this polling station.
Yeah, they set everything. They move it into the prisons for the prisoners to exercise their franchise. But we have thought they should have used something, some method different. By bringing the prisoners out to vote, that one should have been. The people here are more than the 18 prisoners inside. So it's making everybody frustrated.
And I think it's not well planned. If it is well planned, at least they should have known what to do. I was here as early as 5 a.m., but I was much disappointed.
We arrived there at about 8 p.m. and met EC officials protected by security personnel arriving with ballot boxes from various polling stations.
Now, still on the election, let's bring you to Accra and take you straight to the National Police Training School here, where the Electoral Commission is recollating results from some 4 constituencies at Tesano. And we understand there's some disagreement there. Let's speak to my colleague, James Aveji, who has been there all day. James, what more can you report?
Well, Carlos, the disagreement has led to halting of the process, and that is the coalition of Nsawam Aduejiri constituency, where Honorable Frank Anodompre, who is majority whip, is contesting keenly in that election. The disagreement has been about the fact that, some of the political parties do not have some of the pink sheets of some of the polling stations, and so those who do not have the pink sheet of some of the polling stations insist that they cannot consider those polling stations, especially when they cannot authenticate the figures on the pink sheet of the other parties, leading to some chaos back and forth between especially the NDC and the NPP, who are the main contenders of that election. As you can see behind me, it led to the halting of that process. A party agent seated on the table there, but nothing is ongoing. The EC officials have left to deliberate over the matter to take a final decision on it. Honorable Frank Anodompre there having some with his party agent who are also monitoring the process. But so far, out of the 4 constituencies that are being collated here at the National Police Training School, 2 have been resolved. Akwetia constituency has been resolved, and the NPP's NSKUMI garnered some 19,269 votes to win that, as well as Fantiakwa North constituency has also been resolved. The NPP candidate again, Kwame Appiah-Kodua, had some 11,751 votes to win that as well. And so the 2 that have been resolved, the NPP candidates have won that. When I take you to Suhum at my right, I'm told the process has been completed, but the declaration hasn't been done. Let me quickly find out one of the agents on why the declaration has not been done. Welcome, sir, live on Joy News. Tell us about yourself. Which party are you representing?
My name is Randy. I'm representing the NDC for Suhum constituency.
The process has completed. Why are the results not been declared yet?
Yes, currently we are at a stalemate just because on 6 polling stations we are still judging to see the conclusions we will draw on those polling stations.
What's the issue with them?
There are issues of overvoting, and then there are issues of ballot accounting being incorrect. Yeah.
So that's what is outstanding now.
Exactly.
For the
is that all those 6 polling stations be annulled and then the results taken out of the main collation.
But are you winning it?
Per the figures, I think until collation is done, we can't just draw conclusions here.
Okay. Thank you. And so that's an NDC party agent there. They are taking decision on some 6 more polling stations to know what the final outcome would be. And so that's the situation here. In any moment from now, Suhum should be declared, and in Nsawam Aduejiri constituency also, the coalition will continue to know which party would win that. So, Carlos, that's the situation here at the National Police Training School here in Accra.
All right, thank you so much. That's my colleague James Aveji here in the Joy News role. Now, still on the election, the NDC's parliamentary candidate for the other constituency has also been speaking, but we'll bring you that story pretty shortly. We'll take a short break and we'll return with more. Please stay.
ends it for show this evening here on Joy News Prime. Log on to myjoyonline.com. That's where you find all the news. I've had the pleasure of, being on set with you, Carlos Coloni.
Yeah.
Here
Same pleasure here.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.